Hi, my name's Ines, and I write kissing books. Here's chapter 2 of the Valkyrie's Claim. Draco switched his gaze from the woman watching him fuck Gardenia to the fat man running away in the dark of the night. He couldn't help but think that that man could have been him. Not with all the flesh, of course. Dragon shifters were too well crafted to carry excess weight. The fat would impede flying. Come to think of it, fairies were always lean. Was the man a troll? In Shepherdstown? In any case, the runaway troll, with a leaner build and better hair, could have been Draco. He was running away from his problems too. Although, if Draco had a woman like the one watching him screw Gardenia after him, he didn't think he'd run so fast. She was tall and toned, with golden hair that looked like strands of sun. She was covered from head to toe in a bluish cloth, and there were those swords on her hips? Fuck, no. Oh, no, no. She was a Valkyrie. What was a Valkyrie doing watching him fuck? Everyone knew the female warriors were asexual, or not sexual at all. Yet, she had her gaze fixed on him. And fuck, he was still fucking Gardenia. Because for a second there, after he caught sight of the blonde in the dark, he'd imagined he was fucking her instead. But that was insanity. It could never happen. She was a fucking Valkyrie. Draco pulled out of Gardenia's warm heat. It wasn't a hardship to do so. The fairy had already climaxed for the third time. Or fourth, he'd lost count. He hadn't gotten off himself. He hadn't been close. Not until he'd seen the blonde in the shadows. But the retraction of his balls wasn't a bad thing. He knew that blowing his load would only satisfy him for a few moments before he was restless again. Might as well be restless with the blue balls than have his balls cut off by a Valkyrie's sword. Gardenia crumbled into a heap at his feet once he took her from his still hard cock. The Valkyrie's back was to him now. She was watching the large male run off into the forest. So, he wasn't a troll after all. He was a human male, which was far worse. Look what you've made me do, the Valkyrie growled. Her eyes were golden bright, like a cat's. Her ears pointed, were erect and alert. Him? Draco hadn't told her to look at him, but he wasn't about to argue with a Valkyrie. Even though his life sucked at the moment, there was still some value in it. The Valkyrie stomped off behind the running man. Draco yanked up his pants and took off after the Valkyrie. She wasn't hard to catch up with. She didn't run after her quarry. Why would she? Valkyrie always caught their prey. So why was he following behind her? What was he going to do? Help? Like she needed it. She'd likely turn on him and run him through with her sword. Maybe that's what he wanted. Instead of sticking his sword in a willing fairy, maybe he yearned to be run through and end his miserable existence. There, Draco said. The bushes had rumbled, and he caught sight of pasty flesh. Do you think I can't scent my prey? The Valkyrie tossed over her shoulder. Her feet struck the ground in a steady rhythm, drawing Draco's eyes to her thigh-high boots. Even though he was a dragon, and the highest on the food chain in the Vale when it came to shifters, he'd been taught to avert his gaze from Valkyrie. The females were beyond the hierarchy of the beasts roaming these lands. Still, Draco had always had a thing about long legs encased in leather that ended in heels. He was so entranced by her boots that he walked right into her back, causing her to trip. He held out his hands to steady her, but was met with a blade at his throat. I'm sorry, he said. I was just trying to... Help? Her perfectly shaped lips puckered at the end of the word. I don't need your help. Go back to poking your fairy. Draco should have turned on his heel then, but he didn't. His steps fell in line behind hers. Yes, he must have a death wish. Or maybe he just wanted to be a help to one female tonight instead of sending her off to her death. I'll cut him off at the back, said Draco. Corner him so he can't escape. There's no way he could escape, she said. He's in the Vale. Her words were true, but still, Draco went the long way around. His dragon gave him his wings, and he sailed to the other side of the woods. Once there, he heard a rustle in the leaves. Had she already caught him? That was unlikely. She was walking at a steady clip. She hadn't likely arrived yet, but Draco didn't want the man getting away. A loose human male would be a nuisance in the Vale. Draco jumped out of his hiding place. Once again, he narrowly missed the sharp end of the Valkyrie's blade. Only, this time, they both were unsteady on their feet. Down they went, tumbling sideways, ass over belly. He landed with a thud on his back, with her over top of him. Her knees were spread on either side of his hips. His cock, which had been erect, went harder than stone as it nestled between her thighs. The blade at his throat did nothing to lower that mast. In fact, the sharp edge turned him on more. He definitely had a death wish. "What are you doing?" she demanded, but her words were breathy. Was there a wanton note to them? No, he had to be imagining that. The other things he was imagining? What her lips would taste like, how tight and warm her unbreached core would be, what sound she'd make as he threw her thighs over his shoulders and thrust inside her until his balls slapped her tight ass, while she wore those boots. Her nostrils flared as though she could hear his thoughts. She might be able to. She was a daughter of the goddess. Her gaze dipped to his lips. Her hands were on his chest. Did she just grope his peck a little bit? Had her hips lowered a fraction? Was she now sitting directly on his erection? Did her hips swivel just slightly over the bulge in his pants? Should he? He was already at death's door. Why not? Draco tilted his hips up to meet the warm V between her thighs. She gasped. It was only a slight inhale, but he heard it. By the goddess, she wanted him. Ouch! Draco reached up to his neck. His fingers came away bloody. When he looked up, she was gone. In the distance, he heard the squeal of a little girl. Oh, no, that had to be the fat man she'd gone after. She captured him, and it was all over. She would be gone, flying to deposit the man into the bowels of Valhalla. He was lucky he wasn't being thrown over the back of a feral dragon and facing the same fate for the liberty he'd just taken with her. Draco lay in the grass for long moments after her scent faded. His fingers pressed against the blood trickling down from where her blade had kissed his flesh. His dick still throbbed from the contact of her heat. He hadn't even breached her inner walls, and yet he felt a sense of completion. Not a single one of his worries troubled him as he lay wrapped in the memory of her touch. And it lasted, for longer than a few moments. It lasted until the sun came up on a new day. Thank you for joining me for Chapter 2 of the Valkyrie's Claim. Stay tuned for Chapter 3.